Hey, I'm Randy and you're watching The Cheap Audio Man. Here at The Cheap Audio Man, we talk about high-value hi-fi home theater and headphone equipment. And today, we're talking about the Vanatoo Transparent One Encore. So sit down, grab a cup of coffee, and let's see if Vanatoo has changed my mind about powered speakers. So I'm at the nice folks over at Vanatoo at Exponent, and I spent a little bit of time in the room. I remember watching a review of, I can't remember if it was these or their little ones, by Z, over at Z Reviews. And I remember being intrigued, because at that point I hadn't heard a lot of powered speakers. Well, to say that I was impressed would be an understatement when I was at Exponent. However, I was probably mostly impressed because it didn't cost $10,000, because most of the rooms were very, very, very expensive speakers. These come in at $600, and I think they've been $600 for quite some time. Look at them. Look how pretty they are. Now, I did an unboxing of these, and I thought maybe this was paint, because I didn't think there's any way that these would be veneer at their price point. They are veneer, cherry veneer. So you can get a veneered powered speaker for $600. So Vanatoo is run basically by two guys and one son. Actually, I talked to, I believe it was Gary and his son at Exponent in Chicago. Great guys. I think they're based somewhere out of the West Coast. I can't remember. Seattle, Portland, something like that. These aren't made in the West Coast, but they are designed. Gary and Rick both have an impeccable resume when it comes to designing speakers. So what's in these speakers? What type of secrets do they have? Okay, these look diminutive. These look small on camera because I'm shooting kind of with a wide angle. Okay, they have a 5 1/4 inch woofer though, and a 1 inch aluminum dome tweeter. The woofer is also aluminum. On the back, we're gonna get more detail on the back. Passive radiator. And that's one thing about these speakers where they differentiate themselves from other powered speakers is with the bass. There's actually 4 amplifiers in here. 2 for the woofers, 2 for the tweeters. They're both Class D amplifiers, which means these things are bi-amped out of the box. They also have some magic DSP inside. And it's not just a bump in the bass. These things hit 48 hertz minus 3 dB. If you'd have told me you can get 48 hertz out of something this size, I would have said, you're a liar. But if anybody can do it, it's when someone is doing it with DSP on a powered speaker. Power rating for the woofer amps is 100 watts. Power rating for the tweeter, 20 watts. You can tell that they put some care and thought into the way that they designed the amplifiers and these speakers. On the back, there's a whole bunch of stuff going on. So we have passive radiator on top, volume control on the left. These knobs are very nice. They're covered in rubber, and they're not one of those just spin off into infinity. There's a beginning, a middle, and an end on all of these. Okay, so we have volume, then we have some tone controls here, treble in the middle, bass on the right. Down here on the left is the subwoofer output. Next to that is a 3.5 millimeter analog input. Next to that is the pairing mode. Now, here's another cool thing. This is a switch. You can make it left or the right speaker. Depending upon where your outlet is, you can change this around a little bit. Little USB thing there, I'm sure for firmware updates. Full-size USB input, full-size optical input, full-size coaxial input for all your digital needs. And then there's the output to the other speaker, kind of an umbilical. So it's a 4-prong, somewhat proprietary cable. So if you break your cable, you're probably going to have to reach back out to Vanatoo to get another cable. Then there's the power cord. The only gripe I have about these speakers from an aesthetics, how they're set up standpoint, is the power cord. I wish it was removable. Figure 8, power cord, whatever you need. I'm not a big fan of the fixed cable. If you need a longer cable, then you would be able to get a longer cable. Now, there's obviously things you can do. You can plug this into an extension cord or what have you. But for a product that's this premium, looks this good, and is in this price range, I think a removable power cord is warranted. One of the things about this speaker's DAC that's going to get some people, it could be a point of contention, because this is limited to 96. So 2496, not 24192. So if one is concerned with having bit perfect reproduction of their high-res music, if it's a 24192 track, these speakers aren't going to be able to do it. Now, you'll still get sound, it's just that you won't get your full resolution. Personally, I think there's a little bit too much emphasis placed on high-res music. Frankly, anything 1644.1 and above is perfect for me. You may have a different requirement, and that is fine. But what I will say is, you're not getting 24192 out of these speakers. I don't think you need it, but these speakers don't give it to you. If you run an external DAC, of course, whatever the DAC is capable of, you can plug it up. You can plug that right into the back with a 3.5 millimeter cable. You'll probably need a pair of RCA into a 3.5 millimeter cable though. But primarily, this speaker is really meant for digital applications, computers, TVs, video games. There are ways to get an analog signal in here. Well, there's one way, but the way that this is designed really is meant for mostly digital applications. If you want to get a phono stage on here, you're gonna have to get an external phono preamp or a table that has an internal phono preamp, and then you're gonna have to take that from RCA down to a 3.5 millimeter. So this can be your be-all, end-all speaker, even for vinyl, but make sure you have an integrated phono preamp or you have an external phono preamp, and then you just plug it right in there. So these speakers come in at a very compact size. They're 10 inches high, 6.5 inches wide, and 7.5 inches deep. So these are going to be able to go anywhere, and since they're not ported, you can get them closer to a wall and not have to worry about the port stuff because they have a passive radiator. Comes with a quick start guide. So this is not just a run-of-the-mill powered speaker. They put a lot of thought into this. So there's DSP going on in here. With the DSP, you can have a shelved mode, which means on a shelf. Not a shelf EQ or anything. On the shelf. And then you have an off-the-shelf mode. On the shelf, sets a low-pass crossover at 125 hertz when a subwoofer is connected. You can also run a flat DSP, which moves that low-pass crossover down to 80 hertz. If you want louder, funner volume, put it in the shelved mode. If you're doing studio monitoring or things like that, put it in the flat mode. The remote control on this is absolutely 100% awesome. Even if you don't like the looks of this, even if you don't love it, because this remote control looks the way it does, I have seen a lot of powered speakers and I've seen a lot of remote controls. And I've never seen a remote control like this, which means they actually care about the remote control. They actually probably designed the remote control. They didn't use a remote control like everybody else uses. There's a whole bunch of stuff on here. You got Bluetooth, you can switch all of the inputs. You have to hit enable before you do something just in case you bump the remote control. Tone controls on here, up, down, reset it to the middle. Obviously volume, mute, everything you're gonna need at a remote control. It's got a little bit of a texture to it, so it's not gonna slip out of your hand. Definitely not a hard, smooth remote control. The enclosure is 3/4 inches thick, okay? This thing is about as resonance free as you can get. Okay, this is all great. How do they sound? From a soundstage and imaging standpoint, they're absolutely wonderful. Smaller speakers, in my experience, have a tendency to soundstage and image quite well. It's different from a larger speaker, but from accuracy, pinpoint. So I'll put it to you this way. It's just like you think it would be. Since it's a smaller speaker, it's more like a laser. It's a laser beam. And then it's wide. Where a larger speaker is taller, maybe a little bit more immersive, but you can still get pinpoint accuracy from a small speaker. It's just generally on the same plane. Can be forward and aft. Usually it's not as high as other speakers are. Anyway, this thing does an incredible job of imaging and sound staging. Chocolate chip trip was absolutely seamless in its lateral movement. All right, you ready for this? Let's talk about bass. One of the things about powered speakers that I don't really like is generally they don't make a lot of bass, or they make too much bass. They have a trademark. It's called Clear Bass Technology, and it's the DSP that's going on in here. It is wonderful. Intergalactic by the Beastie Boys. I'll put it to you this way. I've never heard it done this well on a powered speaker. And I've had more expensive powered speakers in here from very reputable brands. None of them hit like this one. There is a great combination of weight as well as extension. Not the exact most accurate sound. So Staying Up Bass from Miles Davis was absolutely there, but there's a little bit of that paper cone texture, tone, clarity on the bass that was lost. This is more analytical in the bass. Don't let that scare you, because this speaker has a specific use case scenario that I don't think any other speaker I've had here can even come close to. Let's talk about mid-range. Mid-range is not analytical by any means, but it is very clear. You're not going to lose any type of detail. Chris Cornell, personally, I think he's the greatest voice in rock and roll, or was, unfortunately, the greatest voice in rock and roll. He just can absolutely stop a clock with his voice. Anyway, I have heard his voice be a little bit richer, but clarity, vibrato, intensity, and I know this is kind of strange, these aren't a forward mid-range. I think they're really in line with where they're supposed to be. But the intensity of his voice was just more apparent. While the sound wasn't as natural as I've heard on other speakers, the presence of his voice could not be argued with. Anyway, it was a very good presentation. His vocals aren't going to be as buttery or as caramelly as other speakers. Conversely, though, most of those speakers aren't going to have the top-end clarity that these speakers have. Hello by Adele, very similar. Female vocals on these seemed more natural to me than male vocals. I'm not saying male vocals didn't sound great. I think they did. As far as like complete and utter accuracy, though, these speakers are more accurate, more natural sounding with female vocals versus male vocals. Let's talk about treble. Treble here is outstanding. A little bit of that aluminum dome vibe. At louder volumes, I feel like these can be a little bit intense on the treble. There is, however, tone control, so you can bring it down a bit. I never felt like these speakers were fatiguing. But with an aluminum dome tweeter, there's always a bit of a tightrope walking, because sometimes at lower volumes, aluminum domes can sound very impressive. The Mono 5s from KLH, they have an aluminum dome tweeter, and they put out some of the best treble I've ever heard. But depending upon the situation, depending upon the track, they can come in a little hot. I think we have the same thing here. The good news about the Vanatoos is that you can mitigate that with the tone controls. But I never lost that aluminum dome vibe that I got from these. There is another speaker they make that has a soft dome tweeter. Now, I think these sound great. This is going to get the highest recommendation I can give. However, personally for me, selfishly so, I wish they had a soft dome tweeter of this. I think soft domes can sound more natural. It's just got that aluminum dome vibe. You can't really tell it all the time, but if you're pumping some juice through these, I can hear it. So what are my final thoughts? Final thoughts are, I think this speaker is fantastic for a certain specific use case. If you're using this as a soundbar replacement, I don't think you can get much better than this. Also, if you're using this for a digital 2-channel system or 2.1 channel system, I don't think this can be beat. Here's the reason why. There are speakers out there that may be a little bit less expensive. I don't think they're going to sound better. There's one other speaker that came in, I think it was around $500. I would buy these every day over that speaker, simply because Vanatoo has customer service. I'm not trying to take anything away from that other company. But these speakers are designed by engineer types, smart people. A lot of the powered speakers out there, I'm not trying to take anything away from Edifier or Swan or anybody else like that. I think they design their speakers. There are a ton of powered speakers out there that there's not a whole lot of thought put into them, especially at this price point. I think at $600 here, you're getting a ton of engineering. Some people are going to take offense that the DAC is limited to $24.96. I don't think you should, because I don't think it really matters. But I can see some people not liking that. Some people are going to take offense to the fact that it only has a 3.5 millimeter analog input. I personally wish it would have just regular old RCAs. I would love if it had a phono stage too. Because if it had a phono stage and then another analog input, you're done. As it is though here, this is really geared towards digital inputs. Computers, televisions, the younger crowd is going to love these. You still can put a turntable on here, but if you put a turntable on here, you're not putting a CD player on here. You could use your CD player as a transport if it has a digital out and then go into one of the digital ins. But if you love your CD player, you're not going analog in if you also have a turntable. Keep that in mind. There's ways around it. I think for 99% of the people out there, this is a great system. At $600, you're getting a bi-amp speaker. You're getting incredible amounts of bass in a package that you wouldn't be able to get that amount of bass from a passive system. So you have well done DSP, you have a full DAC, you have a full remote control, you have Bluetooth, tone controls, passive radiator, you can get it right up against the wall, multiple DSP settings, and it comes in a beautiful package, real wood veneer. I have no complaints about this speaker. I can see a few items that some people may not like. Can't recommend this highly enough. So if you want to support the channel, you can check out my Patreon, patreon.com/cheapaudioman. Every Sunday night, we have Patreon-only Zooms. You can also use the links in the description. Those are affiliate links. I'll link these to Vanatoo's website. I do not have an affiliate relationship with Vanatoo directly. However, they are sold on Amazon. I will link those as well. If you click in and buy them through Amazon, I will get a commission. Doesn't cost you any more, though. You can also sign up for Amazon Music or Tidal Music. I will link the other powered speaker video if you want to check that one out. I would still recommend these all day long over the other ones. So don't binge watch anything on Netflix or Hulu. Binge listen, maybe through your new Vanatoo, Encore, something transparent one Encores, and fill your soul with happiness. With that, I'm Randy. I'm the Cheap Audio Man.